Good evening. This is Dr. John Bennett broadcasting from Miami for Neurosurgical TV. We have a usual every 2 weeks we have a brain trauma patient support group meeting, and Shannon has been heading that effort. Every 2 weeks we meet, and tonight we have Robert DeMichaelis. Is that how you pronounce it? DeMichaelis? Is that right?
The Nicholas.
DeMichaelis. Uh,
Second.
he's joining Shannon to help maybe help a little bit.
He's going to co-host.
He's going to co-host, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll tonight we're just going to talk to Robert and hear about his story and maybe ask a few questions. But first, let me introduce Shannon. Hello, Shannon.
Hello, John. How are you doing?
Good. Can you tell just very briefly about yourself, Shannon?
Okay.
You're
Yeah.
a patient, just in like
Okay.
10 seconds. That's all.
All right. 33 years ago, I was involved in a car accident, and I suffered a massive head injury. That was before they used the phrase TBI. But I was in a coma for 6 weeks, learned to move to rehab, learned to walk and talk and speak again. And
Okay, now you're going to help Robert do a show. Okay,
yes, sir.
Robert, why don't you? I'm sorry I should cut you off, Shannon.
That's okay.
Robert, why don't you first introduce yourself, where you live, what you do, and then briefly, I hate to go over the accident again, but just briefly describe your trauma and your road to recovery. And welcome, Robert. Welcome.
Well, thank you, John and Shannon, for inviting me to speak with you all tonight. I very much appreciate the opportunity to work with you and on a collaborative basis, so we can expand the awareness for brain injury and the recovery process it takes. As John referred to earlier, brain injury recovery is lifelong, and
yes.
My introduction to this field happened much like Shannon as a result of a car wreck that I unfortunately I can't tell you ever happened. I still have memories of arriving at my home, getting and going to bed, and I woke up in a hospital. So I don't know of any. I was unconscious for 2 weeks, but I had post-traumatic amnesia probably for 25 years after that.
Okay. Okay. Can you just describe, your first memories of waking up in the hospital and getting back on your feet, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, and certainly, John, thank you for that question. Getting back on my feet is a slow process. Waking up in the hospital, I can only speculate. I don't have my medical records with me, but I do believe I was put in an induced coma, so to lessen the metabolic demands of my brain and promote healing. I could tell when people were in the room, only there was no way I could ever manifest any evidence of being conscious. I was totally unconscious for 2 weeks. When I came out, the TV was on. My family, my sisters, my mom were in the room, and they were very, very surprised to hear me speak. When I say speak, it's more or less what the voice you hear today is my earlier utterances post when I woke up was just mumbling. I could barely. Dysarthria. I have a number of speech impediments that were challenging to overcome. I spent a week, two weeks in ICU before I was transferred to a brain injury hospital. This all happened in 1980, so we were at the cusp of the new beginning. The one hospital, my parents lived in Washington, D.C., and the one hospital that they could arrive, that they knew about to transfer me to, was George Washington University Medical Center. or that's the hospital where James Brady was taken after he was shot. They recognized that they had a program, and so I was transferred there and spent another time. I think it was I was discharged on April Fool's Day in Washington D.C. It's kind of always a an anniversary for me to celebrate.
Were you there a year or what?
I'm sorry, Shannon.
How long were you there? Were you there a year?
No, I was. I said, I was hurt in late February. I was transferred to Washington D.C. on April Fool's Day, and I was discharged from the hospital, their patient rehab hospital, which nowadays standards would probably wouldn't cut the mustard. It was only OT, PT, speech and language, and talking to a psychologist, counseling, and I was only in there for 19 days. And Shannon, but that was one of the issues back then. We didn't have the extended rehab programs that you're discharged to now.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, I wasn't nearly ready to leave or even function. But you couldn't tell me that. In my brain, I was fine, but I said I was still mumbling, but I couldn't hear that either. And so it was a challenge coming out. The hospital released me to what I believe was the custody of my parents. So we went back home to start again.
Okay. Okay. Can you? Did you have an extensive period of rehab? We went over Shannon's history along with her mom, and they kind of went through. Right. But it's a lot easier because her mom was with her, and you're kind of having to do this by yourself. But can you remember getting rehab, physical rehab, occupational rehab, speech rehab? Can you remember that?
Yeah, yes, both in hospital and on an outpatient basis for 3 to 5 years afterward. Yes.
Can you go over each one? And Shannon, could you lead them through the rehab process, please?
No. So when you left the hospital, were you in a wheelchair or were you walking? Did you have a walker, or were you?
I didn't have any devices. I said when I first got out of bed after trying to stand, I collapsed. I couldn't even hold my own weight. I spent time. There were 2 guys on my side pulling me around to develop my sense of balance, so I could even be steady on my feet. I'm an athlete. So I'm a quick learner. I've got some of it back. I still have physical limitations in that regard. I.e., I'm not as quick or as fast or as coordinated or have as much balance as I did when I was younger. And with the age, it's even got another aspiration. But my PT just really lasted while I was in the hospital. After that, I took it upon myself to make my muscles stronger by walking, by doing stuff in the house and doing stuff around the area. My bigger challenges were the cognitive and the destructibility and my 1 second memory or half a second of memory I had and my communication issues.
Yeah. Now, see, I was 15 at the time of my accident, so I was in high school. So I just had that. My mother got homebound tutors from school, and she helped me, relearn things, and we just started from you know, where I was, and I picked up, you know, and um, it took a while. I wasn't as fast as I was. I was slower, but I'll take that over anything. But did I didn't like the Asia. That was
Right.
one thing I did not like is
No.
the word searching, because I knew that word was in there in my brain, but I couldn't find it. And I
Having word finding problems is very, very common post injury. And yes, that's
yeah,
one of the most challenging because you always end up fighting with yourself
yeah,
or
no
reacting
kidding,
to
yeah,
that. And so and it doesn't look good when you're on the street hitting yourself, trying, what am I saying? What am I saying? Or,
yeah. And
of course,
I do that today. And so I, it's not, I haven't lost that. So I still struggle with that. But
so especially probably also gets worse when you're in a stressful situation or
yeah, when you're tired,
when you're doing two or more things at once, etc.
yeah,
Where
or you're
there's
stressed out, or
right.
people are piling things on or asking you to do too much, and yeah.
What? Oh, okay. For you, Shannon, aphasia was the most difficult part of recovery.
Well, it is now. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I think,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're still having problems with aphasia?
Well, yeah, sometimes, yeah, yeah.
How about you, Robert? Was aphasia a big component of your recovery? Or because Shannon was saying a couple of weeks ago that every patient is different.
Yes, that's correct.
Every patient has different areas of recovery and speech and movement and whatever. Because all injuries are unique. But you particularly, was your speech affected a lot?
Very, very much so, John, and it still is. Um, I as I wake up to wonder what at what point during the day am I going to have another brain injury moment where somehow I was planning to do something and didn't get there, or I left the keys somewhere else, or I put them down and walked away. I've lost several phones. I walk and talk to someone, put it down, walk away, and then not realize it until I'm way past
Okay,
the
so
time.
that's a memory thing, not aphasia, right?
Well, yes, but my speech is the issue as well, as you can hear with the stutter that doesn't seem to go
No,
away.
we
Um,
understand you. We understand you.
I'm talking about, but and also I also had to work very hard with the dysarthria. I had weakness in the muscles of my throat, so I couldn't enunciate or pronunciate words.
Oh, so that was
And
a
then
that was a motor weakness, and did they work to strengthen that somehow?
yes, I did, but I don't
What
remember
kind of
what
what
I
kind
don't
of
remember.
exercises did they do? What kind of things do they?
I don't remember them. I said one of the biggest problems, one of the things I think is crucial to understand for your surgeons and even for the speech and language pathologists is the fact that a person with a brain injury, mainly that they don't look like they're injured, but and then there's also that they may have some other issues in themselves where they can't identify with the injury that's going on. Even
Okay. Now, Robert, I
yeah,
encourage you to get your medical records, because you can get them now. So go to the hospital and get your medical records and read them, because I got mine. So
and I said since my injury happened in 1980, I don't think they probably don't
oh,
have those
yes,
anymore.
yeah, they do. My injury was in '84. So yeah.
Chris, so you mentioned one thing, Robert, that Shannon's kind of go over before, and actually John Byler brought the point. John Byler, who's written a book. What's the name of the book, Shannon? Do you remember the name of John's book?
No, I don't.
Okay. Anyways, what he said, Robert, was the same as you. He said a lot of medical professionals don't believe you. Actually, and some other patients don't think you're injured because you look okay.
Hmm. Invisible disability.
Yeah, they think that, well, they're faking, or that they're exaggerating their problems because they look fine. Did you
No.
experience that too?
Well,
There is-
that's the problem that we face regularly in policy wise, but it's called malingering. where you-
Malingering, right? Okay. Some people, some doctors and nurses think that you're actually faking it.
Yeah.
I mean, right, and unfortunately, as you allude to and stated, that because we don't apparently we don't look like we have an injury, it can appear that we're over that these
Could
things,
be.
Not
Yeah.
exaggerating, huh?
right?
Crying wolf. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Now, Robert, I
Yes.
want you to tell John about the work you do in Washington, D.C. The foundation you have. What is your foundation
Well,
called?
No, it's not my foundation, but I get so I was in my recovery in my parents' home. We lived on the outskirts of Washington D.C. I ran around the neighborhood, and I found the Northwest Center for Mental Health, and they had one of Marilyn Spivak's National Head Injury Foundation newsletters at the place.
Yeah.
I said, wow, look at this. Hey, something for my mom to do. And so I grabbed it and I asked everybody to take it, and they allowed me to. So I took it home. And so mom, of course, was thrilled that she got the information and called Maryland, and that established our family relationship with them. And as you also will know the history, in 1990, the National Head Foundation moved to Washington, D.C. and changed leadership. And under George Zitney, changed the name to the Brain Injury Association. And so, but they came to Washington. So if my help in that process was giving my mom a newsletter and her calling Maryland and say, hey, you should be down here in this area where we can make a difference. That's what happened. The foundation came down to Washington, and where they're located today, but they're in Tyson's Corner or Vienna, which is next door. I live less than 5 miles away from that, but they had a number of homes in DC, including Alexandria, Virginia. They have and on Massachusetts Avenue, by DuPont Circle in DC, which was fabulous. We started the course, and we initiated the issues as far as bringing the federal government on board, to educate members of Congress, their staffs, and the agencies that we all interact with. CMS.
Does this group have meetings, Robert? Regular meetings that you go to?
Well, the Brain Injury Association got its hallmark thing that they did, John, was their purpose was at first to connect people together. So they started support groups throughout the United States.
Yeah, nationwide.
Oh, nationwide. So every major city, even small cities, have these meetings.
Yes.
How often are these meetings? Like once a month,
Like maybe twice a month. We have one twice a month in Wichita.
Right.
Are they in hospitals or people's homes?
Yeah, in
Where are they?
hospitals.
In hospitals?
No, in libraries.
John, there are and we empower the states. We empower the local people to get together to decide for themselves where they should go, how they should meet, and so they have the authority to choose their meeting times, meeting dates. They are their own associations.
Is there a format for the? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there a format Robert and Shannon, is there a format for these meetings, or are they kind of free form? They just wing it?
Well, it
It,
just
it depends.
it can be structured, or it can be like a holiday party, or it can be like um, a, it can be like a parents meeting, or it can be like a survivor meeting. They can split up.
Okay.
Or, yeah, you can have
Okay.
that.
So you after you go to these meetings, does it make you feel good?
Yeah, because you're not alone.
Yeah. Okay.
You
Like
understand
any support group, I
that
guess.
you're not alone. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. And do you typically tell your if you're new to the group, do you typically tell your story? Is that one of the features of the meeting, like any support group, or is it
Well, and
doesn't?
John, like you started this meeting out with Shannon introducing herself and me introducing myself. We provide that means to the people because that's a common common way to break the ice, and so that people understand each other and they know. And if anything special that they like to add, because people with similar injuries have a commonality there, a sense of growing together. So it's a nice icebreaker.
And like what we're struggling with that month, we could be struggling with something different like every month.
Mhm.
So, and someone else may have gone through it too. So, and they may have an answer for us.
Now, do you both you guys are you seeing doctors regularly now, or once a month, once a year, or is you pretty well on your own now?
I'm on my own with my
Okay.
doctor. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Robert? Do you see a doctor regularly or no? That's
And that's changed over the years, as you allude to the fact that I was very lucky when I was hurt in the Northern Virginia area. We had a group of doctors there who knew brain injury. They had programs, so they were very involved with the community, and so they knew a lot of our those recovering and the extended recovery. Since I moved to Florida, and so I'm no longer in the DC area. I'm now in managed care, and so that and so that there is no I'm at their dictates as far as see, but I do see my doctor regularly. We chat. He and he tells me what he feels I need to do. I said my you raised an important issue because I'd like to explore maybe with you as well. I said, I don't know the efficacy or the effectiveness of me now starting a speech therapy program to help me correct this speech impediment stutter I have, or if that's just something I should join Toastmasters to do and go it that way.
Mhm. Okay. Well, that kind of brings me to another thought, and please be brief because I'm sure you can talk about this all night long. If you had to improve something in the healthcare system, what do you see? What would you improve, and what do you see as a weakness in the brain trauma patient arena area? We'll go with you, Shannon, first.
Okay.
Briefly.
Okay.
What would you say needs to be improved? What do you think, Shannon?
Well, I think more more interaction with with all.
It's okay. You don't. You can come. We can come back to you.
Okay, thank you so
Think
much.
about that. Sure. How about you, Robert? Did anything come to mind that you would
John,
recommend improving?
I would say there are a lot, but the coordination that exists, and I'm sure it's changed a lot since I was injured in 1980. But after that, but from the hospital to the home, from the hospitals to schools, from the hospitals, and even within the communities themselves, the acknowledgement, the awareness, the education to not be afraid of people with brain injuries or to treat them respectfully. The people with brain injuries, I've never met one who's not doing the best they can. And like they said, I might have some challenges with my speech and my attention, or you may ask a question that I don't quite hear. The variety of things. Communication is critical. My coordination as well.
Okay, so you feel actually the public needs to be educated about what a brain injury involves and how patients are
That's always
affected.
helpful. Right. And that's why I'm thrilled of programs like this and Shannon's and the work she does to connect people together so they can understand more about the possibilities. I mean, I spent a good time talking to doctors and myself and trying to explain what's going on in my head to find it so that to contribute to advancing the field.
Okay, there's another question for both of you.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Something? Go ahead, Sharon.
All right, now I see improvements. Well, improvements can be in the medical field, in the VA for veterans getting help with traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
Because there's too many TBIs.
CPR. What's a CPR?
No, TBIs. Too many TBIs.
Oh, TBI. Oh, I'm sorry.
In the VA.
Okay. Okay. If you were talking to a patient that's recently brain injured, what advice would you give?
Be patient.
Okay. How about you, Robert?
That's good advice. And also stay strong and believe in yourself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Robert, for having the courage to tell your story and to tell us what's going on with you. And Shannon, thank you for coming out.
You're welcome. Hey, now, John, I want Robert to tell about when he was in Washington, when he goes and does, when he goes before the panel.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Do that, Robert?
Go ahead.
And Shannon, what we do in Washington, or it should be done in your own living room, i.e., that you have a problem and you look for a solution to do it. Some of us believe that, in fact, when you're dealing with such an injury, i.e., the number one cause of death and disability in America from age 2 to 45, that's something nationally should be done. Brain injury is an all-encompassing thing. It wasn't until the Brain Injury Association got together that they actually solicited the Army and the Armed Services to develop the Defense and Brain Injury Head Injury Project, which now is the Center of Excellence and TBI Bethesda, Maryland. And so this was unacknowledged before, and also the post-concussion issue with the NFL. Again,
yeah,
we've raised the issue of brain injury to a level where people now are thinking about the consequences, and again, because it's so as I felt it was important to me as a person to come out and share these messages with Congress. And look for bipartisan agreeable solutions to solve the issues to confront the issues that we can solve and empower the patients and my peers and the families and professionals and the systems to respond appropriately.
That's awesome.
Okay.
It's something that you keep doing even today from your living room or from your house. Be attentive. Make sure when you hear something, say something.
Yeah.
That's what's important. Be fearful and be fearless, and not be afraid to speak your mind.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll wrap it up now. Thank you, both of you guys, for coming out.
Okay,
And
thank
we'll be probably meeting in a couple of weeks and go over
Okay.
other issues.
Great.
Because using this platform of Google Hangouts is very, to me, it's very useful, not only in medicine, but in inpatient. I think it has tremendous potential in patient support, and not only for brain injury, but for things like epilepsy, diabetes, whatever. I think it's just beginning to be used, and we'll see. So we'll say good
Okay.
night and stick around, and we'll chat after we're off the air.
Okay.
Good night. Good night, Robert.
Thank you,
And good
Kevin.
night, Shannon.
Good night, everyone. See you 2
Thanks,
weeks.
Shannon.
There you go.
Bye-bye.